independent company. But there's only 2 or 3 companies around that, you know, would handle these products anyway, so it's not like you can, you're not gonna go to, you know, the generating plant up in Harmony or whatever, Athens, as a farmer himself and buy the material, because, you know, they've already contracted with someone else to handle it and do all the paperwork and regulations, you know, because they're regulated, you know, it's all a regulated waste product, so to speak. So the, you know, the poultry manure used to be, you could basically take what you know, buy what you wanted on your own.
What if we said that the actually LD fiber in the mill line was acceptable, the spread, it meant whatever conditions the state might put on it,
Right.
as far as testing and so forth.
Yeah, I would say something like that would sound reasonable. You know, like, we could add whatever other products, you know, we can get a couple other product names or whatever that might be out here, but, as far as municipal waste, like they were trying to spread 20, 30 years ago,
No.
I don't think too many people would be pushing to have it, or pushing, you know, for it, was one thing. And that part of it probably wouldn't make much difference if that just stayed pretty much the way it was, because I don't think it's gonna happen anyway.
But we could just prohibit it, for that matter.
Right.
You ought to, I'm kind of interfering with your workshop here, I guess, but do you want to get a hold of Casella and see what kind of information we can get on those 3 products? We'd like me to do that.
Yeah, you could give them a call and just ask them for a list of their different types of products so we can look at it a little bit more. You know, you could get a list of their products and a description of their products, so.
Okay.
Because I know when they do the shows, they have, you know, they've got paperwork, you know, sheets for all these different products. You know, so that might be, that way, you got a list from them and a copy of their sheets, you can make 2 extra copies, that way people can look at it and know what we're actually talking about.
All right.
You know, that's probably, you know,
Sounds like a plan.
you know, beyond that, I mean, off the top of my head, I can't think of much else. There used to be
Is he coming in? Or?
places that would, you know, like when they had all the poultry processing places in Belfast and things that sort of, you know, field spread along that, you know, poultry waste. They got some things that sort of, that's pretty nasty stuff.
Yeah.
But that's all, you know, there's none of that around here now, it's all small scale things. There's very little, small percentage of what there used to be happening, what's going on now. I mean,
So banning the sludge pile already completely wouldn't seem like a bad idea. Right?
you know, this banning municipal sludge, the way it's, you know, I don't want to say it's a raw product, but, you know, their pelletized form and things of that sort, you know, we probably could look at that as, because that's a whole different, you know, level of what we're looking at. You know, it's not, and that's passing other states and federal guidelines, so there's not much issue with that. Right. I guess we could look at some kind of determination or description between, you know, a partially processed product and a fully processed product or something. I guess I'm not sure of the definitions.
Yeah. I just got the impression perhaps there wasn't much of a need for the sludge as far as the farmers.
Yeah, I don't
More
think.
of a need to get.
Right, you know. I don't think there is a huge part of it, you know, that pelletized one, like, you know, because they're selling that to, you know, golf courses and schools for, you know, so it's passing probably more stringent regulations than most anything else. I can't remember what they called it though.
Well, it's pellets, huh?
Right, it was a pelletized or granular, you know, formulation.
Chris, do you have a need to get rid of sludge?
Well, when we need to get rid of sludge, we hire a company to haul it right out. When we did it the last time, we had a big press come in. We had a dredge out in the pond. It vacuumed all the sludge up. It was dewatered and it was hauled to a landfill, is where our stuff.
Yeah.
Like I said, it was all dry product pretty much. It was 90% dry when we had it hauled off. So it's not something that could have been spread over the land or anything like that. nothing you would want to. There's no treatment to it other than pressing it. And I think we should stick with not spreading that on the way. That's still just raw sludge.
Yeah.
And that was at the town transfer
Yes.
station?
Yeah, 'cause I think originally their plan, or their thought was possibly, land spreading it,
Right.
years ago.
Right, and that's why they put the 2 fields in, but
Right.
then someone put the kibosh to that, and the fields have just grown out since, but,
Because the sludge is good.
right. Well, no, that's when the ordinance was passed. Once people figured out that the town wanted to spread their own sludge out of the ponds to get rid of it, people didn't want that, so they put this ordinance into place.
Yeah.
They voted on this ordinance, that's where it came from. That's my understanding of it anyway.
Well, it looks like we used our time up for the workshop meeting. I'll get some information from Casella here, and we'll just say we adjourned at 7:03.
Let me know when the next one is.
Yeah, we'll give you a week's notice.
All right.
With luck.
With luck. That's right. Have a good night, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Welcome you all here this evening. We'll start by the Jeremy and the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have 2 council members who are out tonight, so guess what? Ron and Stan get the vote.
The power's already gone to my head.
I can tell. Stop the snoring. Are there any objections to making that? No, I didn't think so. Okay. Well, maybe one of them, but it's fine.
Yeah, Stan's fine, but that other guy.
Next item on the agenda, the adoption of the minutes of the February 10th meeting and the sign work group meeting of February the 21st, which I think you got in your packets. Do I hear a motion for the approval of those?
So moved.
Second.
Second, any further, is there any discussion?
May I speak?
No?
Ron, well, who was made the first motion, Ron?
Stan.
Stan, okay.
Yes?
Yes? I'd like to see an amendment in, under 5B, where it talks about the comprehensive plan, suggesting that you'd be working on changing or updating the plan, and change that to implementing the plan's suggestions and recommendations.
This was a discussion that came out of the last council meeting, that the council is really afraid that we are going to rewrite the comprehensive plan and it will look like other plans in the town.
Actually, we're not really afraid of anything, but we would like minutes to reflect actuality and not fantasy.
Ooh, okay. Okay.
What is this? Adoption of the minutes?
Yeah.
This is from the last
It's under the last minutes. We're not really changing we're updating the comprehensive plan and putting some things in place that should have been put in place that are not. And as we begin to pursue some activities for the rest of this year. So we're just changing some wording there. Any other questions?
This is item 5B.
Yes.
I don't see that.
Deb, can you give me just write down what you'd like that to say? You can get it to me.
That the council and the planning board are going to be meeting to start looking at implementing recommendations from the 2013 comprehensive plan.
Okay, but we'll word it that way at the next meeting.
Okay.
In the meantime, I can't write that fast, so if you write it down and give it to me at some point in time.
I will.
I really appreciate that. And then, the other thing you talked about was the minutes you thought were fantasy.
No, that's,
I was being facetious.
she was being,
To Jan, I was talking to Jan.
she was making a
Sorry.
shot at me, so.
Excuse me.
But she and I will deal with that later, so. So with those adjustments, if there's no other discussion, all those in favor of the minutes with the proposed adjustment. I think the key is that we're going to be taking a look at the comprehensive plan. There's a lot in there that has not been actually put into place. And then there'll be some changes, I think, as we begin to have some discussions, which we'll talk about a little bit later. So, all those in favor of approval of the minutes as adjusted, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, we'll put those corrections in next time. Public hearing, we have none. Old business. Discussion of the updating of the sludge management ordinances. Tom, do you want to just give a summary for the purpose of the meeting in terms of where you think we are?
Well, we just had our quick little meeting and had some discussion, and we're gonna get a little bit more information from Casella to be able to pass out more information so we can make a better determination on products we do or don't wanna have, available.
I was kind of hoping that Heather was going to be here tonight, but she was. Just as a sense of farmers in the area, how many of them do you think actually use sludge or whatever you want to call it on their fields? Is there a sense of that?
If you're talking municipal sludge, right now, very few in the general area, and when I talk general area, 20-mile radius.
Okay.
I can't put my fingers on a one name right off the top of my head. I know there's probably some happening, but nothing in this town.
Okay.
Basically, there was product coming out of Plymouth. That operation was over there, but that's been closed up now for a year or two.
Right.
And so I think Casella is the only one handling potentially some other product. I'm not aware of anything else. Different companies or different Portland Water District thing used to go to farm shows and things to promote their product, but that's all gone away for 10, 12, 15 years now.
And this change away from that is because of the concern for what's being spread.
But as far as the other types of byproducts from that we talked about, the wood ash or algae fiber or things of that sort, there's a large volume of that being used around the state. Some of it here in Pittsfield that went, that Steve's aware of, and outside of Pittsfield, even more so.
So the recommendation from the work group is that Steve is going to contact Casella.
Right, and get a little bit more information so we can make a better determination on the products we're looking at.
Okay. Sound good with everybody?
So we're gonna pick the products they have?
Well, basically, they're almost the last one around that's dealing with
Right,
anything.
right.
So they have sheets on their products, what they, how they're processed, where they're coming from, things of that sort, and the uses for them. And so if everybody has those in front of them, they can kind of look at them and know what we're talking about easier.
Yes, sir.
Yes, I don't know if this is the appropriate place, but last meeting, we had two people here from Casella.
Right.
Yes.
And one of them, and they talked about the product that they get out of the mill, out of the mills. One of them said that the mill does its own testing on that product, and Casella does no testing on it. They just accept it, and whatever the mill people say goes. The other gentleman said, I don't particularly put full trust in that, and I test it myself, which I love, because I've worked in a paper mill for 18 years, and I know some of the things that could go on. And I can give you an example. I was a pipe welder. This is just one example. And when you weld on pipe in the mill, you have to have that pipe tested if there's any chemicals in it to make sure that it's chemical free. And one particular time I was told, "You're all set by supervision, you're all set, Stanley, don't worry about it. We've already taken care of it." I called security to come over and test the pipe anyway. It was turpentine in the pipe. They came over and tested that pipe, and it was 100% turpentine fumes. That's just one instance. I worked there 18 years, and I could give you others. So I'm a little concerned. Like I said, I love the fact that one gentleman said, I don't take their word for it. I test myself to make sure what we're getting out of there is safe. I'm a little concerned about the others that don't do any testing and just allow that coming in and taking the test results from the particular mills as gospel. It's just a concern I have.
And I can't-
If one individual can test, why can't it all be tested? I'd feel better about it myself.
I don't remember specifically, I remember that conversation, but I don't remember specifically which product he was talking about. I don't know if it was.
I don't know I
can't remember if it was the wet mill line, because there's not a lot of things they get out of the mill that I can't remember for sure.
But it does have to be tested.
Yeah, most of the stuff.
I mean, there must be a reason that it has to be tested.
So let me ask you a really stupid question. So somebody wants to put something on their field. Do they come to the town, Steve, to get permission to do that?
There's been times when one of them has, when it was the MCI spreading, when they wanted to do that. As far as the ash that we discovered here a while ago, no one came to me on that. We just all of a sudden found piles of it around town, or a couple piles.
So do we want to make it as part of the ordinance that if somebody wants to spread something, they've got to come in and get approval from us? And then that way we can check the, or verify.
Well, I think if we have the list of approved products, and whatever guidelines we set for those approved products, it probably isn't an issue at that point. There probably wouldn't be an issue if, to come before the town, say, well, we want to look at spreading this product, and once it's been okay, but as far as getting an approval for every time it wants to be done or things of that sort, that gets to be troublesome.
Okay, but the key there was if we have a list of approved products,
Right.
Do you think that would work, Stan?
I certainly think that would help.
Okay.
Yes.
And that would be for approved products, basically that aren't farm derived anyway, or something along that line, because, you don't want to make, because there's manure from one farm that another farm might be using and things of that sort. That's pretty common, so you wouldn't want to have to make, applications for something like that all the time.
Okay.
Maybe we could require a safety data sheet.
I think they have that for all these type of products.
Yeah, and we would, we could say in our ordinance that needed to be.
Because I know when I wanted to do the algae fiber a number of years ago, I think that's one of the things that Pete and Andy wanted was a safety data sheet.
Yeah.
Just for their records, which, it wasn't a problem.
I mean, if you have the products, you can get the MSDS sheet and put it right online, can't you, on the town website?
Yeah.
It's
Probably.
there.
I just wondered if we periodically wanted to have an updated test sheet.
Yeah.
That would be.
But it's not like there's any third-party testing, right? The state doesn't go by and check. I mean, you're going on the word of the mill and Casella.
Right. The Casella,
But
like
they-
I said, one gentleman said they just take the test results with whatever test the mill runs. And the other guy said, well, I don't take that as gospel. But I'd be sure it's
The state doesn't go around spot checking.
Right, not, I know.
Well, the check issues a license for people to spread that, and they have to have a spread plan or whatever you call it, directories, before the state will license them.
Yeah, because I know even for that algae fiber we've spread a lot of in the past, basically, between Casella and us, we filled out all the paperwork and everything, and that's basically, and I don't know, I think that was filed with the state, but I'm not 100% sure. Basically they handle all that paperwork because they're used to doing it all the time. But, there are guidelines that, if that stuff is stockpiled, it has to be spread or taken care of within so many months. Otherwise, Casella has to come back in and haul it off. And they've had to do that in a few places where either stuff was hauled in and the farm went out of business or something like that. So Casella's pretty, for the most part, that if they have to do anything like that, they're not making no money at all. So, it's hey, they're being paid, to handle these products from mills or other places as a waste products. They're being paid a fair amount. What they charge the farm, and it varies on products, is basically enough to hopefully cover truck transportation and things of that sort. I think they're making the most money from the main source, and then the farms or the end user is basically is gravy money.
Okay, so down the road we'll have a update on this. And, okay, sounds good. Any other comments or questions? Ron, you want to talk about sludge tonight?
I'm all set.
Okay. I just thought I'd give you the opportunity.
I think,
I had a question. In the event of some off-the-wall thing happening, some catastrophic thing happening that causes a contamination, do they provide any guarantees that they will be there to clean it up?
good question.
I guess I'm not 100% sure. It's one of those things that over the years on most of these things, and anything that gets that catastrophic, seems like everybody disappears. The companies go out of business or file bankruptcy, things that's right. I don't see any of that happening with these type of products. But
How much product would be stockpiled at the farm? A couple hundred yards, more than that?
yeah, depending on depends on the product, because certain products are a lot more concentrated. So you don't have as much. Like I know that the algae fiber, there was times where I would take most of the production during January and February because it's deep snow and things of that sort. So I would sometimes take as much as 100 tractor trailer loads. But usually by early summer it was all gone. It's red. Because most of those products, they don't want you spreading on frozen ground and things of that sort, because basically as runoff and things of that sort, you just have more potential of, I don't want to say contamination because it makes it sound real bad, but loss of product, and if you're paying for it, you don't want to, you want to get all the benefits you can. But most of these products, I can't foresee, a major catastrophe with, with these type of products. The raw or not somewhat processed municipal sludge is probably a lot more potentially down the road issues, and that's why most of that's all gone away.
Carrageenan is the fiber stuff is 10% of the bulk of seaweed is where that comes from. The seaweed comes from Peru, and they will extract the carrageenan and they only get 10% by volume.
Right.
What that's, and the rest of it is waste, seaweed waste.
And we weren't spreading that for the seaweed. What they were doing, they were adding agricultural lime to it to basically neutralize the smell, because what rotting seaweed smells like. Well, just go along the coast in summertime. So basically it neutralizes that odor and smell and helps it break down. And that's what we wanted, was that agricultural lime, because lime is extremely expensive. But I think what happened was the plant figured out that they could put a lot less lime in it to do the same job, and so it isn't nowhere near as good a product as it was.
I see.
It used to be, like 5 or 6 tons of algae fiber had 2 tons of agricultural lime. And I've heard now 5 or 6 tons of that only got about, maybe a ton in it, so they cut it by 50%. And it still takes as much time and effort to do it, and I think they're still trying to charge as much, so it's a lot less valuable. But that seaweed basically, because if you look at the analysis for fertilizer value, that seaweed has, and even the algae fiber as a mix, has very little nitrogen, potash, phosphorus. I mean, almost nothing on the scale. So, basically we were doing it for the pH liming value, and if half that's gone away, the value of it's more than half gone away.
Okay, so we'll be talking more about this in the future. 5B, review of the proposed changes of the sign ordinances suggested by the sign work group. I'd like to thank Harold for his lovely tour of town a few weeks ago. I was disappointed that there wasn't any food involved, but what can you say? So, Steve, you want to stay? Go ahead, Steve.
Well, I kind of felt like I wasn't pulling my weight here, so I sat down and I took our existing ordinance and the first few pages kind of clarified some things that have been cloudy in the past. And then trying to figure out how to deal with the traffic directional signs. And so I wrote up some verbiage on that, as you can see that's my hand on there. And then I thought, well, how do I deal with the fact that I almost have 2 ordinances now? And I haven't come up with a good solution any more than I thought about putting in there, and it is there, that the applicant must choose between a commercial sign or a traffic mounted directional sign. And so I'm looking for input from you people. I didn't know, but maybe you've already done some work on it, but we talked about that we were going to, for some guidance and advice.
The info you had from Newport and Scout Weekend, they didn't have anything in there, did it, about directional signs?
No.
I couldn't read through Waterville, that got just so convoluted.
Oh, I really love that. But some towns don't even have one, I found.
No.
So, but I'm kind of wondering if we just addressed it under the calling it a directional sign. It says if you put one on attached to a building and a sign leading to the building, what more do you need for a sign? Do we need to have all that complication when maybe we could just say the last page there, and we'll figure out what size they can be and not have the other part of it.
Well, the other thing I thought of is, how many people or businesses have you turned down over the years for signage that, Jan, did you say wait?
He's got to get the paper.
Sorry.
Okay, go ahead.
How many people or businesses have come to you and say, well, how come I couldn't get this sign?
A lot of people, how come I have to build by the code? How often, why can't we do this? Why can't we do that? I get a lot of that. If one person sees something healthy happens, he thinks he ought to be able to do it too.
Yeah.
And it might be extenuating circumstances, a lot of it would be why he can't, but you're bound to get that. So. And then if you kind of look around town at signs that's been here for 10, 15 years or more actually, there's a lot of things that don't meet the code, that somehow they got allowed through the years and so forth. So those are considered grandfathered signs, and that's addressed in here.
Can't keep that song out of my head. Sign, sign, everywhere is a sign.
I think, you know, as we went around, and I think one of the questions that you were asked, maybe, but I think, you know, why all of a sudden? Because it's a safety factor in some respects in terms of trucks and traffic coming into town and helping guide some of these vehicles through town. I did something kind of stupid today. I actually went down about 5 minutes of 10, and I sat, this has nothing to do with you guys, but just an observation. I went down and sat in the parking lot across from Dunkin' Donuts there, about 10 minutes of 10, and watched for, clocked 15 minutes about the number of trucks that either came out of the industrial site or came off of the interstate and made turns to go into the industrial park down there, and watched how some of those drivers drove. And there were probably a good 10 or 12 trucks in that 10 or 15 minutes, which kind of surprised me a little bit. And it is a Monday, but you know, you might expect that on a Monday. And of those 10 or 12, 2 of the drivers went around the outside of that sign because they couldn't make the turn to get in, you know, where they normally would. So now that has nothing to do with you guys, but I think it does kind of reflect on, you know, is there potentially another issue here that down the road might need to be thought about? I'm not sure that by putting signs in it's going to necessarily solve that problem, but maybe if what we eventually come up with seems to help the situation, it might lay out a roadmap, no pun intended there, in terms of helping traffic flow through some of the more congested or complicated areas in town. Yeah, in fact, one guy, when he made the turn and he stopped, I could see him looking like, obviously he'd never been to town before, and it was kind of like, what the heck do I do now, you know? And he started to turn, and then he stopped, backed up a little bit, and then went around the outside. So, but I think, you know, what would you like to see at this point, Steve? You want? Do we want to just go with something with its sign size and go from there, for directionals?
Well, of course, what I did was just so everybody knows, I put a copy in an email, everybody a copy of the ordinance, which they could do the same thing to it as I did. You could edit it. And so I went ahead and did the same thing. Did anyone have a chance to do that or think about it, or just not? Have you read the draft that I proposed here? And do you see any issues with that?
It's hard to follow the changes, you know, the double-sided and, you know, size. I like what you did with the, you know, the directional signs, you know, freestanding and one mounted. I mean, that's probably the easiest solution, but.
Yeah, I had to reword some of it because some of the directional signs are off-premise signs, so I had to reword it to allow that. Yeah, but most of the changes were just, while I was at it, I just wanted to clarify the ordinance because it was a bit confusing as it was 32 feet apply to both sides of the sign. Is that a 64 square foot sign or is it a 32? It's double sided, and so a lot of that just clarifies that. So that, and then I thought, well, gee, after I wrote the whole thing out, so what I did to myself, it seems like I got 2 ordinances, and what am I going to do about that? I never found a good solution yet to anyone. And I put in the sentence that the applicant could choose to be commercial signs or directional signs.
If you'd all flip to the second to the last page of the last page, I mean, that's the major change that I think that Steve is referring to for the
Yeah, right.
For kind of the second ordinance there.
I like simple things. After I wrote that all out, I thought, well, you know, maybe all we need is this paragraph right here. But
Well, I think, I mean, I read through the one paragraph and then also the rest of the, like the double-sided overall, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, yeah, it can get a little bit convoluted, but at the same time, if that's a consistent question that comes up, it's important to have clarity in the language. Right? I mean,
yeah, that was the problem with it before.
Yeah.
But I've written several different ordinances in the time that I've been here. And you write it, you think you got everything covered, and it goes into effect, and if some customer walks through the door and, well, never thought of that. You know?
Can I put you on the spot? You've seen this. Yep. What's your reaction to it?
I think it addresses some of the issues. I don't think it necessarily covers everything. I did notice that there's, in some of the zoning districts, there's some stuff that makes a lot of sense that isn't allowed in any other district. Like when you go to, I think it's the medical district, like there's some stuff there that there's a lot of municipalities. If you go to Waterville and you're driving down, I believe it's KMD, right by the hospital, there's some municipal signs there that are ladder type signs that would be very handy, that are only in the medical district in the town of Pittsfield. So I don't know if there's something there
Well,
that
actually,
might help.
they're in C3, because there's a ladder sign like that at the shopping center.
Well, and I know it's in, it's right, right here. Just reading it.
C2, not 3, we got C2.
I know I was just reading it. Under specifications, number 4, in the medical services overlay district, the following standards apply. And that's very different from any other district as far as the sign design, square footage, and everything. Everything else is pretty consistent, but I think, and I'm jumping to conclusions here, but I think part of the reason why it's like that is because they have a lot of people that aren't familiar with the campus, and they're trying to direct them to the proper facility, very similar to what I think other people in the community are trying to resolve.
Harold, what's your estimated time frame on your project here?
We would like to be installing signs in May. I know that's a pretty tight time frame, but also taking into consideration that I think we've been working on this for 2 or 3 months now.
Yeah, the ladder sign is talked about in the C2 district as well. Item 5C.
Right, and the highway commercial district is right off the highway, right, I mean, you've got the plaza, Robinson.
Route 100 South has one too. My next step, if you people bless it, I guess, my suggestion is that we've got a kind of a list here of what we want. I'm going to see if KV Cog can give us a hand with the wording and so forth, because that seems to be what they do to help different towns around Kennebec County and Hudson County here. then when we get that draft done, then Catherine and I talked about sending it to the attorney for a final review.
And then bring it back here, and then we have to have
Then, once we get through to that, once we get a copy we can go with, then we have to have a public hearing. And with the planning board, and then it goes to a public hearing with the council.
What other feedback are you using from other community businesses to address the sign?
Well, I found two or three different ordinances from different towns, and found a few towns that have none. And I passed them on to the people in the packages, so I think I sent you a full package.
I got the sign ordinance is what I got.
Okay, yeah, I thought I sent you this, but anyway, they're the ones that I came up with, and they're in this package that the board members have.
I guess my question is more focused on community businesses within Pittsfield and any concerns that have been brought to the town on their part. I've heard mention of some concerned businesses within the industrial park struggling with getting truck traffic and just random business traffic to their facility through the right road.
Yeah, that would be the other reason that we would want to entertain doing this ordinance. It's not just for Chimro. I think it's needed up at the industrial park as well, and there's probably other places. It would be nice if we could have directional signs that more than one company could use, but I don't see a way of doing that. But anyway, I gave everybody a copy of the Scout Higgins sign ordinance. And the water bill.
which is huge,
And Newport.
which is simple.
Yeah.
Check out the triangle.
Anybody that wants to do that, it's very easy to just go on Google and type in town of Heartland or town of this or town of that, and most of them have all their ordinances right online. You just read and read them.
Is the sign committee looking for recommendations on proposed sign size?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
We have in this here, we have some of your sizes, but that was, as you noticed on the last page here, I left the size blank because I thought that was something that the board would want to decide on themselves, or could vary.
And again, refresh my memory, and I may have misunderstood. Okay, so a truck comes down Somerset, goes to the traffic light. You want to send some traffic to the left.
We want to send all truck traffic to the left.
Okay, and then they're going to go down to where Vaughn has his shop.
Correct.
And they're going to be able to make a right-hand turn there
Yep.
without knocking down that garage.
Correct.
A lot easier there than on Main Street.
That is.
And that's where your truck traffic goes now, right?
That's where all Chimbro trucks, the
Chimbro,
majority
yeah.
of Chimbro trucks, when they're coming into town, they turn left to the light.
Okay.
To eliminate that hard right-hand turn, and I mean, you're always right up against traffic right there. And if you were to sit there in a 15-minute period during a day, I would make a wager that you'd see at least one car have to back up, or a truck wait and watch a car drive out around them. It's our concern is the safety hazard associated with it, and not only the vehicle traffic, but the amount of pedestrian traffic that crosses on that right-hand corner, and also the traffic that walks back and forth between Honeywell and call it the Rennie's side of the street, or walking across to Bangor Savings Bank. Just that small area right there is probably the majority of the pedestrian traffic on Route 100.
I want to go back, I just want to underscore something that Steve said. I mean, whatever we come up with a solution for this, is something that may have ramifications down the road. I mean, we want to make sure that whatever we're providing and developing, if we decide to make some changes down by the industrial park in terms of signs and so forth, right? So we wanted to kind of be able to apply to not just here, not just Chimbro, but potentially other places as well.
Yeah.
So, Harold, your largest freestanding sign is what, 4x7 roughly? Is that what you're talking?
I believe so.
Down right there.
I believe that's the big one.
Yeah. And there's nothing right now for freestanding signs in our ordinances, right?
Well,
Or
yeah.
for directional?
Not for directional purposes,
Right.
but for different zones and so forth.
So in the industrial park, what's the size of the sign that can be in there?
The park?
The industrial park.
See, that's the industrial, the industrial, one double-sided sign on premise per business or use, I added that, with a maximum overall area of 32 square feet per side.
Oh, okay. Right? I mean, that biggest sign right there is 28 square feet.
Yeah, 4 by 8.
Right.
Yeah.
And the big, and you can have 32 square feet.
Mm.
So that'd be okay down there, right, in the industrial park?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It used to say, when I first got involved in working here and enforcing this ordinance, it used to say per site, per lot. Well, that really limited people, so we changed it to, we revised this once and changed it to, let's see, per business. And then, when I wrote this, I thought, I had read one of the other ordinances from the other towns, and they said, businesses or use. So the use part would fit Chimbro well, because, for instance, the repair shop, the use of that would be the maintenance shop.
So we're adding a little time here, maybe, because that's why I asked you what your time frame was, but.
I mean, I guess on our end, we're more concerned about getting it right for the community. And if it takes an extra month, it's not the end of the world. We just want to make sure that we're not the ones highlighted that, oh, we have a sign like this and nobody else does. Because I know that there's other people, other businesses in the community that have concerns, and I think would probably like to have some input on the signs, be it people in the industrial park or others. Obviously, I mean, their representation shows their interest tonight, but.
No, thank you, I appreciate that. So as a recommendation at this point in time, if we like this, do we want to indicate to Steve to take it to KB Cog and have them?
Do we need to decide on the size?
Do you want the size?
Yes,
to-
Yeah, so
that'd be a good thing to do.
Do you have a size?
Well, I think, the 4x7, for the freestanding,
Pardon me?
4x7 or 28, whatever, or you can leave it at 32, I guess, if that's what it is already in the.
Well, let's see. The sign shall not exceed inches, or the directional sign shall not exceed, it's 40 or whatever you put the inches, and then the other one is as height, so there's width and height. Shall not exceed blank inches horizontally and blank inches in height. So what do we want to put in there?
And that's camel size, right?
Yeah, that's the panel size. If you had a sign on the side of this piece of paper.
Right.
You got a post here, and a post here. We're not worried about the post.
So, 4 by 8?
Yeah, 48 inches
4
by,
by 8.
whatever.
6,
Yeah.
Probably the 8 would be high and the
Right.
Okay.
And where was this from? Where?
Well, any place that.
I mean, this one in particular, the industrial park, where would this one from? Isn't it the old park?
No. Basically, it's direction signs, so where it would go wherever it
That-
needed to go.
I think that, you know, that big one, the one they want to put in would be up on the intersection of Main Street and 100, right? That's that. Sign right there.
Right.
As they come into the light, they see that sign over on Chimbro's property, right?
Yep.
And the one on Somerset by the industrial park?
You mean for the industrial park big sign? That's, you know, she's talking about the entrance sign for the industrial park.
Oh, okay, no, I don't know about
Is there one going there?
No,
Not for Chimbrow.
Oh, okay.
That's one of the areas that has been discussed as far as the sizes of the signs on the industrial park sign.
Right, okay.
I think Jan saw it when he did his little site visit there. I mean, the driver will stop, try to read the sign, see if the company's in the industrial park. It's hard to read.
It is.
I was driving by just recently and I looked up at it, going the speed limit, looked up to see if I could kind of scan those businesses relatively quickly and see what they are. And I mean, when you're driving by in the vehicle, they look like a sheet of paper on a sign. It's hard to read.
And it's always new, if someone new is looking at the sign because they've never been there. If they've been there, they're not paying
They're
attention.
not looking for a sign.
And that's why they're not making a good turn there because,
And that's what happened today with those two guys.
Right.
Kind of.
so basically, you know, because if they know they're gonna be turning there, they're gonna be hugging the center line to make a sweep.
I just don't want them to screw up me turning into Dunkin' Donuts like that. Coffee.
And Tom knows, and I know, if you know, CDL driver, if you're not familiar, you get one shot, and then you're creating chaos.
Exactly.
And you're backing up, you know, and it's,
You know,
it's
and
not
once
fun.
they stop, people are trying to run around.
And they don't catch any slack.
You know, it's, you know, people will get it, you know, I was in Waterville, this was a few years ago, and this truck was trying to make the turn, couldn't make it, and finally someone pulled out of his way, so he started going, but a car came right up underneath and started driving right over the front of the car. Geez, I was about 4 cars back, and I'm just shaking my head thinking, you know, but you know, 2 cars had stopped, 'cause they saw him trying to turn, someone went around them to get there and got right under the trailer. So it was a combination. The trailer had issues, and then the person didn't have a clue.
Well, you know, those people from out of state, I mean, they're probably from New York City.
I won't go to any genders here. You know, and that's not the case. It just, you know, it doesn't matter what gender. I've seen it.
Getting back to the industrial park, the business owners could put a bigger sign on that sign that's right there on the beginning of the industrial park road. But then you go down and on the left as the Perillo Drive that goes up to the trailer manufacturing plant, that would be a place for
Right.
the other sign, so they would know where to go
Yes.
to get that. You know, and some of the others,
Right, and I would-
lumber and a few of them.
Right. You know, most of the people go into Hancock Lumber for lumber, you know, wood deliveries. You know, they've been going there for a long time, so that's not usually the issue. But and now that they don't have a retail store, there's a lot less other traffic. So. But you know, I would imagine there'd be a couple places there on the industrial park with some directional signs. It would be helpful.
So I think there was 3 categories. There was the freestanding and then the building mounted one, where we would probably ought to put limits to length and height and so forth.
What are you thinking for the building mounted? Are you thinking it should be smaller for some, like why can't it just be the same size?
Well, I would think that it ought to be smaller
Why?
for appearance sake and so forth. I mean, would you know, for instance, if you, Harold, what do you think about that?
The one thing that I think limits how big somebody is going to make the sign on the side of the building is it's not, I think it states very clearly that it's not for advertisement purposes. So you can't advertise the business name or the services or anything like that. it needs to be directs traffic to businesses, locations, or uses.
So it'd be a use.
But it wouldn't be like, I don't think, I think the ordinance limits being able to put a 32 square foot Chimbro sign on the side of the building if we wanted one. I think that, I thought I read that in here where it clearly states that you can't do that.
What I've said is the traffic directional signs are exempt from all those other rules. So you gotta read the first of the ordinance to do that, but those signs are exempt, so we can just look at them as what signs we want for freestanding and what signs we want for the building.
But if you had one on a building, you know, just say I would think you'd want on the top, you know, saying Chimbro and an arrow saying shipping and an arrow saying receiving or something like that, just so they knew they were at the right building. But I can see not having the whole sign with Chimbro name on it.
I don't know, I think the ones that they've got there on Dawson Street, the market, they're probably, what, 2 feet by 2 feet, some of them? They're not very big.
On Dobson Street?
Yeah.
No, those are standard street signs. They're just a little bit bigger than a standard street sign, so they can't be any more than 8 by 24, maybe at the biggest.
8 inches by 20.
Yeah, they're not very big. Those green signs or the white signs.
The ones that, one of them says shipping and receiving on it, I think.
Yeah, those aren't very big. Those are mounted on a standard street sign post with just the T brackets.
Well, there's some right on the buildings themselves.
Yeah,
We have one for dispatch
Yeah.
that identifies the
There's
dispatch.
another one back down towards Honeywell Avenue too, I think.
Shipping and receiving?
I
Yeah, I
thought it
think
was
so.
shipping and receiving.
Well,
I think we have one on the well test shop as well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Just identifying, because when you look at that side of the building, there's 4 access points just on that one side of the building, and
yeah.
it gets people to the right location.
So that, that was what I was thinking about that one. I thought they probably would want those smaller than.
If we had it our way, they'd be bigger.
Hmm?
If we had it our way, they'd be bigger, and they would be perpendicular to the building, not flush mounted to the building.
Yeah.
Because what we find, there's a lot of truck traffic that will drive right by before they realize that they're at the dispatch office. They can't see it driving up to it.
Perpendicular has the disadvantage of being a problem sometimes for snow plowing equipment. They have to be so high for a front end loader to clear them.
Yeah, these are all very high.
Yeah.
And I think the biggest one that we have on our plan is 38 inches wide, so to be sticking off the building just over 3 feet. So, as far as snow removal equipment, it's not a problem for our snow removal equipment.
Okay.
And none of these signs would protrude over a sidewalk or over a public way. All these would be private to us.
We allow those perpendicular signs currently now on Main Street, the only place. But they're over the sidewalk, so we said they had 8 feet of clearance, so that the snowplow was running over where it was.
In my opinion, I don't see on a private building that's not over a sidewalk or over a road, I would think that a business owner could put it whatever height they wanted it. I could see putting a restriction on it, not over 20 feet or something, but as far as putting the minimum, because you may get some people that want to mount it directly over a door at, call it 7 feet to the bottom of it. And you may get some people that want to mount it over the top of a overhead door that could be 12 or 16 feet tall.
Yeah, I think that there'd be other cases where, other than yours, where we'd want to see that was at least 8 feet, but maybe we could say it can't be less than 8 feet or something.
Well, I think in the district that you have it outlined in the
C1, I believe.
the center of town, I forget what the district's called, but
C1.
that makes perfect sense because that's in a public way. That's in a location where public snow removal
Yeah.
equipment is being used. And in our applications, it's all private. Every bit of it is private property. All we want to do is get the signs put on the side of our buildings. That's really all we're up against.
Yeah.
So back to the last page for a second, building mounted traffic directional signs shall not exceed so many inches by so many inches high. Do we want to go with the size of a,
Do we have to put anything in at all?
I'm sorry.
Do we have to put any size in at all? I mean, it's gonna be permitted anyways, right? Do these signs have to be permitted?
Yeah.
So
But
they could be,
they have to be permitted for the object.
right, but as long as you don't get into the advertising part of it, then why can't you have an 8 foot by 8 foot directional sign on the side of your building if you want? As long as it's say, 3/4 of it says Chimbro or whatever.
You know, it's, you people, that's your decision. And usually, you don't want to take up the whole end of the side of the building, but
Right.
that's why I thought it ought to be restricted, but maybe not, maybe.
Well, Steve, what is the basis for the rules the way they are now?
Pardon me?
What are the reasons that we have the measurements that we have and the provisions that we have? Is there anything?
It's, what, the reason is this is what the council and the planning board approved years ago, basically. And it was been redone once since I was here, because it totally didn't apply. And if I wanna do it again, I wanna try to clear up some of the things, and that's why, you see a lot of crossouts and double-sided signs, just to clarify what's meant by it.
I just wondered if it was like for aesthetics or was there?
Well, yeah, I mean, the reason for sign-ons is so somebody don't have real big, obtrusive signs.
Okay.
did you mention street sign sizes? Is that what you said earlier? That's what you have on most of your buildings?
No, that was in reference to the corner of Honeywell Ave and Dobson Street. I think there's 2 directional signs there that they're so small nobody can really read them.
Okay.
I think some of this might have started way back when the state of Maine outlawed billboard signs. Remember those?
Yes.
Yep.
No.
There's still some states that have them.
Yeah, I think Carolinas do, don't they? South of the border or whatever.
Anywhere down south.
A few other
Anywhere
places.
Anywhere down south.
Yeah, everywhere. Well, can we pick a size and then by permit or by whatever, if they need to get a variance or whatever, then that can be done.
I would almost say the same size as maximum on the other one, and just keep it simple.
Right.
Yeah, I like that suggestion. I would suggest striking that building mounted traffic directional sign shall not exceed, strike that line completely. And then on the sentence before that, strike freestanding, so it just reads traffic directional sign shall not exceed 48 inches horizontally by 96 inches in height.
Do that again.
Yeah.
Do that again.
So in the main body, on the bottom of the second to last page,
Yeah.
it says freestanding traffic directional signs.
Yeah.
Strike freestanding.
Strike 3, okay. So we got, yeah, and then,
And then on the last page, the second to last section where it says building mounted traffic directional signs, strike that whole sentence.
And then we're looking at how
So
big.
one covers it.
So traffic directional signs are the same size, no matter if they're freestanding or building mounted, which keeps it a little bit more.
what size is that? The horizontal?
Does that still allow you to have both though?
Yes.
Yes.
Over 48.
Well, it does if you strike the last thing, right?
Right.
Oh, what do you mean by that? Both,
Well,
freestanding and on the building?
One of the questions I had was the last sentence was applicants for sign permits must choose between commercial signs and building mounted traffic directional signs. It is not allowable to have both. So that would mean that at our equipment facility, you have our equipment administration building, which is all one building, the shop and the administration building. There's what I would consider a commercial sign out front that has the company name, what the building is, has the address for emergencies on it and everything. That would limit us being able to have a building mounted traffic directional sign as well, wouldn't it?
What I'm trying to word is if the signs that are in the other zones, you know, the ones that we've had for quite a while, I'm trying to say that they're between those and traffic directional signs. And I think that we can probably control that by definition. A commercial sign is a store or retail place of business or something like that. And a traffic directional sign is a use or a manufacturing, or we can solve that problem by putting a definition for what those mean. We have a definitions chapter that I didn't pass on here. Everyone knows where it is. So.
Sound good? Okay,
Harold,
Steve?
does that answer your question?
It does, yes.
All set, Steve?
So the size of here, what do we come up with?
4 by 8, right?
Okay.
Yeah,
48 by 96.
48 by 96. So that would be a not to exceed, yeah, that's right. Some people may want them smaller.
Which one was that?
The size is 4 by 8, not to exceed 4 by 8.
And that's on the directional signs?
Yes, either street mounted or building mounted.
You know, we're not gonna have, now we're just gonna have directional signs, they're not gonna be street or building.
Right.
Mounted.
And that 4 by 8 was building mounted directional signs?
Street or building.
Or.
So it's either one.
Either one.
Either
I don't
one.
think that's big enough. And so I don't think that's big enough, and the reason why I say that is with the number of businesses that, we'll call it the number of companies that we have trying to direct traffic to, the sign on the corner of Easy Street and Route 100, you'd never be able to read the sign.
I thought that sign was that size.
looks like the biggest sign you had, was A.
Yeah.
So on the height, I guess when you say the height, is that the height of the panel of the sign, or is that overall height from ground to top of
I
sign?
think we're calling panel, right?
As long as it's panel,
Yeah.
that's okay. It's the
Yeah.
height. The
I
height is
can add
more-
that panel size. But you, the one, your biggest one is only 47 by 83. So that
Correct.
gives you a little bit
Overall panel size, yes. Yep.
Yeah, so basically, I think that's what we were talking, panel size, not counting any
It's up
posts.
from the ground to the top of it. You get, you know, whatever your posts are.
Is there going to be a height restriction set on the overall height of sign from ground to
Well,
top of sign?
the sign, the old ordinance limited that to 20 feet. But we didn't want real tall signs, so that we were trying to get a sign tall enough to be seen from the interstate and so forth. So, that's what we probably go with, is just make a note that those could be seen 20 feet in height.
Which I don't think would be an issue.
I can't imagine.
Might help some of those new drivers though.
Problem is that drivers aren't looking up like that, they're looking down like this.
Okay, we all set? We'll give Steve a little work to do. tomorrow by noon, is that done?
If I'm here, I can, if I have to let it.
Oh, wait a minute, we gotta make it Wednesday. Wednesday to go. So nobody can bother.
In advance of the next meeting.
Okay. Okay, any other comments? Harold, everything okay?
Yeah, I think so. We're just trying to decipher here, trying on the height restrictions in the different districts. Because I know in the highway commercial districts, it's a maximum height of 20 feet. In the medical district, it's a maximum height of 15 feet. And it doesn't really clarify anything in any of the other districts, just those two that's defined as in.
I think that probably those are the only districts that allow a freestanding sign. A pole sign or whatever. I hear you, right?
That's why, I guess that's why I'm commenting on it. If we're gonna make this change, I don't know if you wanna clarify in those other districts, if these signs are allowed, that there'd be a height restriction on them. Just so that nobody can go back and say, well, it says 20 feet in this one, it says 15 feet in this one, what is it? I can just see that, on our end, it's not a problem. I can just see that turning into a problem in the future.
I thought that was one that was under generally prohibited in all zones, but, somewhere in here it talks about that, but I haven't found out where yet. Well, I think that's probably a good idea to change it so that they're all 20 feet.
And that 20-foot restriction, I know in your write-up, I think it's in the sign shall not be lighted and shall not obstruct the view of traffic at intersections. That pretty much covers right there what your limitations are on where you put it. I mean, I think that's the biggest concern on my end, that we don't want to put a sign that obstructs traffic, and I don't think the town wants us or anybody else to put a sign in a spot where it obstructs traffic.
Yeah.
I think that's where it comes into, I think that's where the code enforcement comes in and says,
Yeah.
this obstructs traffic here, we gotta look at moving it.
Yeah. Well, we gotta look at permitting it the first time in the right place.
Right.
That's the best way to do it.
25 would work great for us. 20 feet, I guess I should say.
20 feet?
That maximum 20 feet would be just fine on any freestanding sign.
Yep.
I don't see any reason to go higher than 20 feet.
20's up there pretty good. That's
Yeah.
like, that's the top of that's the inside of my shop.
It's definitely more than the line of sight of a truck driver, isn't it?
Okay. Moving along. Can I move along, Steve?
Okay.
5C. At the last council meeting, the council suggested or agreed to have a work session with us. And I believe the date of that meeting is April the 28th. And that meeting will just be, it'll be a work session with council members, and the goal of that meeting will be to identify 2 or 3 major items or issues that are related maybe to the comprehensive plan, or maybe to, if you read the thing that I sent out to you the other day, where we want to be 10, 15, 20 years from now. And then once we come up with 2 or 3 topics for May and June, we would have a couple of community meetings open to the public, led by somebody that's not either on the council or the planning board, and preferably not even from town, to lead that discussion and to come up with some goals and objectives and some things to help move set a sight for the future in terms of the town. So I sent a note out to you the other day, at least getting you to think about that, so that when we do meet on the 28th of April, we can at least start the discussion going. And so that's the purpose of that meeting. My guess is that as a result of that, it probably will, in effect, make some significant changes to the comprehensive plan. Because 2013 doesn't sound like a long time ago, but in actuality, it really is. And a lot has changed. And I think the point that I keep trying to make, and I know that it upsets some people, but this part of Maine is changing significantly. And I'm looking at it just from my ties and my background experience with schools and education and communities and so forth, that, you know, it's difficult to get people to move to this particular area. The reality is there's probably not going to be another Chimbro or a multi-billion-dollar corporation moving to this area. So what kind of community do we want to have? And I think I mentioned at the council meeting the other night, I had a couple of people take me on a tour of the town. I won't mention any names. One of them is here tonight. And we rode around a little bit. I also had somebody want to take me on a tour of the town who's not a member of the council or the planning board. I haven't agreed to do that yet because I'm afraid they may take me somewhere else and we never come back, but that's okay too. To show me some things, but over the last couple of months, and even with Steve back in the fall, we rode around in some areas. And you know, what's this area going to look like in a few years from now? What do we need? And it sounds kind of hokey. And I have no problem with putting this on line tonight if it's there. I did call, or I did send an email to Heather, and I did talk to Jess Willett, and just using the situation that we are right now, we don't know what's going to happen with the virus that's going around. And you know, you can sit here and you can say, well, you know, who cares? Or who knows, it's all a hoax or whatever label you want to put on it. But I think the key is that we need to plan for the future. We need to plan for the future now. And you know, this community is old. The people who are living in it is old. I will say though that I think there are some young families who would like to, who have moved into town. The other day I was out chipping the ice from my driveway, and a person pulls into my driveway, and he and his wife and 2 young children are sitting in the back. The kids are in the back, not the adults. And he said, you know, we're looking for a house for sale. We'd like to move into town. And I don't know how accurate this is, but allegedly there's only 5 pieces of property for sale in town right now. Well, that's a good thing, but it's also a bad thing. In talking a little bit with Catherine, maybe one of the things that we might want to do is rezone some sections of town so we can have different kinds of housing. We've talked about tiny houses and those kinds of things. A lot of people recently are really beginning to see the stuff that Keith Cookson, what's his first name? Chris Cookson is doing out on Route 100. You know, and I was contacted by a contractor, kind of off the cuff, but it was part of a discussion that said, you know, what's going to happen to the SAS property? You know, is there any chance of, you know, developing? So what do we want the town to look like? Do we want to have housing? Because I don't see us getting a lot of big businesses here. Waterville is growing like a weed, okay? 2 or 3 more years, the people out are not gonna be able to find houses to live in Waterville. We're only 15 or 20 minutes away from Waterville. Let's maybe capitalize on that a little bit and see if we can offer some housing for young families like Ron and some other people to come to town. And we've got a good school, we've got some other opportunities, we've got a river, we've got parks, we have an ice skating rink, we have a ski slope, we have all kinds of trails. So these are the kinds of discussions I would see us maybe involving in some of that discussion around the comprehensive plan as well, in terms of where do we want to be 5, 10, 20 years from now. Now, I'm sure that Moses Martin and his group of farmers back in 200 years ago were having the same kind of a discussion. But I think now it's even more critical. And just because we're building houses doesn't mean that that's not going to increase the tax base either, because of maybe the kinds of places that we're going to build. And I think, Brent and I had somewhat of this discussion a little bit. We got to do something. We really need to do something. So that's the purpose of that item on the agenda. So hopefully you'll join us on the 28th and come in with some ideas and kind of go from there. Other comments, questions, concerns? I mean, if you think I'm crazy, tell me. Calling for a vote? No, because we're going to have the meeting. Right, Dave?
I was kind of clear what the vote was. Was it that you were crazy or?
Yeah, that's what I was saying. That's what he was saying too. I was trying to ignore it. But I mean, I think that's what we discussed at the council meeting too, in terms of some things. And I think there are a lot of people that have some ideas. Economic development is more than just having somebody in town that's going out and looking for business to come here. Because I think there are other things that are involved in that concept of economic development. So we'll see what happens.
Well, Jen, to extend on what you were just saying, and I just wrote down a few things, some positive things here in town. I think we know what's here, but we have parks, ski area, airport, a nice airport,
Great
school
airport.
system, golf course,
Yep.
a nice public library, a new pool, police department, fire department, hospital with life flight capability. So
Yep.
the niceties are there, right?
And I wonder how many people really know that.
No, well, that's right.
Because those are not the things that we're necessarily marketing.
I think it gets back to housing and infrastructure. I mean, all these other things are nice, but, I think we're gonna start really addressing, our roadways and, some of these properties that should be dealt with and, and be able to build affordable housing.
Yep. And that's the operative word, is affordable housing. And it doesn't have to be anything really flashy.
Right.
But I think, and we've talked a little bit about doing something with tiny houses. That could be a piece of it. But I think we need to look just beyond that also and say,
Those houses that Chris Cushion is building, those are, people call those tiny, but some of them are 900 square feet.
yep.
And they've got 2 decent sized bedrooms, they're nice. So I wouldn't call that a tiny house. You're pushing 1,000 square feet.
I've seen in a couple of magazines, articles, Architectural Digest did an article about tiny houses, and they were all a little different. None of them exceeded 1,000 square feet. And they were set up, it was like a community with communal park, and you had a parking lot. So you had to walk to your house from the parking lot. So there were walking paths and created its own community, So.
But the thing is that there's no place in town right now to set up like that, with a subdivision set up. But I don't think any of those houses would look bad on some of these in-town lots with a, like those 1-car or 2-car garage with it, I think it'd be perfect.
Yeah. And again, one of the things that I talked about with that I mentioned to Heather when I talked to Jess Willett this morning, and the older community, if by some odd chance, a lot of people in town are senior citizens, and what happens if they can't get to the store or do some things? And so if we have those kinds of communities or sub-communities or whatever you want to call them available for people, whether they become senior housing or even housing for young people, because one of the concerns is if this virus takes off and people aren't working, or they are working, who's going to take care of their children if they have to go out and they can't take the time off to be with their kids? So I think there's a whole different set of, I'm not sure about that. I was going to say I think there's a whole different set of problems that they didn't have to face 150, 200 years ago, but I think that those problems are exactly the same today. It's just that it's a very different world. And if we can do something to expand housing, I know Pete and I have had some interesting discussions about housing for people who work at Chimbro. And to get people to not necessarily have to live so far away anymore. So there's a whole lot I think to talk about. And it doesn't have to be solved by July 31st of this year.
Yeah, there's a lot of elderly people living in large, extremely large homes. So wintertime efficiencies are terrible.
Awful.
My mother's one of, she lives in the house at the farm now that, is 5 or 6 bedrooms. We block off half the upstairs house because we don't need it, but, it's still, if you think about the efficiency for the amount of oil spent there for one person, you could heat 2 or 3 small homes. But it just, and there's a lot of that around. So, I've heard people talk about trying to, I don't want to say commingle, but especially people like my mother that, my father passed away 15, 16 years ago, and there's a lot of people like that are, single, but they're, I wouldn't, not, love my mother and everything, but I wouldn't want to send someone else to live with her because, she might strangle them if they did something wrong. But you know what I mean? It's just.
How do you survive?
Man, I got lucky. We had 6 kids, so she had to spread it around. But you know what I mean? Usually, I don't want to say older people, but everybody's set in their ways, and it takes quite a bit to have 2 or 3 people that could live together and get along. At least in a housing community, you've got your own place, so it's a little bit different.
Yeah, I mean, my mom lived in Winterberry up in Bangor for a while, which was a senior housing kind of a thing. There isn't anything like that around here. I don't know when we looked at the place in Waterville a few years ago, the waiting time for her to transfer down from Bangor to the place behind where the hospital is, 13 months. The reality is she didn't live that long. And thank goodness there was the place in Dover. But, I'll use, and I can never remember her name, Persis Smith. When they closed the nursing home up here and Persis had to go to Scarborough to live and leave her family and leave her friends, that's a crime. That was a downright, very sad situation. Because the lady had lived and given her life to this town. And I think we want to try to do some things to keep that tradition going. You may not want to answer this question. Have you guys had a discussion about, the working people and the virus at all? Like wash your hands and all those kinds of things.
Yeah, that's a big deal. We've limited how we do travel right now.
That's what I was wondering.
Outside of the state and outside of the country, that's very limited currently. Till further notice. So yeah, It's serious.
It's real.
We're taking it seriously, that's why, anyways.
It's real. So. Okay. So, April, but we'll have a meeting obviously before that. No other new business, any other items to be brought up by the members?
April, well, this is March, we're not gonna have a meeting before April.
Yes, we will.
Well, before the April meeting.
Before the April 28th meeting.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay, I think you, yeah, all right. All right.
I scared. Any other items?
I just have a quick question. I know you're at the meeting that night. Thanks for going. I watched a little bit online. Where do we get information on this peak organization?
I don't know.
Do you know, Deb? Or?
They're a corporation, they're nonprofit, and they strive to fill some of our unused properties with buyers.
Is this the forum to ask questions about this? Or?
This forum?
Yeah, here or.
Yeah, let me add to what Deb just said also. I was shocked when Catherine read the introduction to the paperwork in terms of what it included. Because, I think most of us that are familiar with Peak see it as, they sold property down at the industrial park. But there are a whole other host of items on that list that I didn't know were part of what they could do. But go ahead.
Well, I didn't realize it existed until they came in when was it, last fall? Or?
Yep.
I didn't know they existed.
And according to what she said the other night, and you two guys can correct me if I'm wrong, they don't have any property to sell right now.
No, they don't.
And so they're sitting on some cash.
Oh, that's a question I have. Where do the proceeds from these closings go? To Peak, or do they go into the coffers of the town of Pittsfield?
It goes to Peak,
Really?
yes. They're a corporation.
Private nonprofit.
Nonprofit.
And the town of Pittsfield owns the industrial lots, the industrial park lots, right? The town of Pittsfield owns those lots.
In the industrial park?
Right, they did.
Yes. They did.
But through the sales of that, the proceeds went to Peak.
Not necessarily all of them.
Well,
I
that's
think
scary.
if you really want to know about it, you should have Mike Gray come and talk to you guys about it. Or
Yeah, I think
when
that-
he
I'd
gets
like to-
back, or we can have him at a council meeting.
Is there oversight of a contract before it's closed on?
No. They pretty much just come in and say, hey,
Right.
we've finished this deal.
And proceeds go to Peak. And no one's taking
Not
no one's
always.
taking any salaries, right?
Correct. Correct.
I think one of my questions is where in the beginning, because it was founded, it was
95.
established in 95, where in the beginning
Where the money come from?
did their original money come
Yeah.
from? Now, allegedly, there were some grants and there were some financial resources to help with, I think, community development. Is that what
That
she?
community development is starting to become as important to them as the economic community development. They realize that
But I think
the
that's
two
what started
pieces
the
have to
money.
go together.
I think that's what started the money back in 1995.
Right.
That there was because when you listen to the list, that list was really, I was shocked. Because it wasn't just property, it was helping kids, it was helping families that were struggling, it was redoing houses and all kinds of things.
Do they report to the town council?
No.
Monthly? Nothing.
No?
Should be some kind of oversight.
I know the mayor can go to any meeting, right?
The mayor can go to any meeting. I've just been appointed. Tim Nichols is a committee member.
Right.
And the reason that they don't do minutes and talk about what they're doing is because they don't want deals, they don't want the deals they may be working on to be upset.
Yeah, I understand that, but why, and I don't know.
Confidentiality is a.
I understand, but why can't the town council do that, go into like an executive session, have certain people then, you know, just to be transparent about the whole thing? I mean, I don't think that's ridiculous.
Well, it's.
I don't know, I just don't know,
it's
I'm
funny, yeah.
gonna bring you more information.
I asked the same questions,
I know.
last year when I first came on. And since I've had a couple more conversations with Mike Gray, and to me, it makes sense. If they're working on a deal, even executive session, I'm sorry to say, does not mean doesn't equal confidentiality. And there are a lot of things that have been done that have gotten out into the community and have ruined proposals. So after my initial, they should be here and they should have minutes and blah, 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 once I had a conversation with them, I understood why they did what they did. And they do come in periodically and tell the council what's going on.
Yeah, I understand, but I'm just saying, you know, when you're writing up a contract, before that thing's closed on, someone, you know, the mayor should probably look down through that and make sure.
The other scary thing.
I would think that the mayor does look at it.
Yeah, the other scary piece also is that there is a council committee, an economic development committee.
There's what?
The council has an economic development committee.
No, that's a town committee.
But my understanding is the committee
That has
has been
nobody
there for
on it.
7 years.
What happened is Pete pretty much took over that role. And so people didn't want to be on that committee.
So
We certainly can invite them to a council meeting and let the board know that they're coming and hear
I
what
mean,
they
am I
have to say.
the only one with concerns on that, or?
no.
No,
Yeah, it doesn't make,
not the only
and I'm
one.
sure, you know, it's all good intentions here, but it's just,
Well, have we ever heard of anything good done?
well, yeah, they're involved with sales of properties in the industrial park, which is great, you know, but,
Not just that.
right, I know there's other things, I know they're trying to, but,
Who's on that board?
Gary Jordan, Mike Gray,
Where does Gary Jordan live?
he's moving back to
He's
Pittsfield.
moving back.
he's from originally from
He's
Pittsfield.
originally
I
from
know, but he
Pittsfield.
hasn't
and
lived there for a long time.
He's
right?
in Hamden, or?
Well, he's moving back
He
anyway.
lives in Hampton. He's coming back.
But there's
Bob
no,
Stackhouse, Tim Nichols.
there's no requirement that says they have to live in town.
Right, no, that's fine. I just, watching, I had more questions than answers from that.
I was just
I
shocked.
never heard of it until, whatever, 6 months ago when they came in.
I was just shocked at the list of things that they're in their charter or their guidelines or whatever.
That probably hasn't been updated recently.
Kind of like the comprehensive plan.
We're
Sorry.
only 5 years into the comprehensive plan.
Huh?
Remember I told you I'd let you know what that was? It's called the Growth Management Act of 1988, which specifies format and goals for local comprehensive planning, local plans to be reviewed every 12 years.
Right.
So we still have 5 years to go before we have to have it reviewed again.
You were here when we did the last one, weren't you?
I was,
I think it just started.
I was here when
You
the
don't have
original
to
one.
rewrite the
Well, I
whole
wasn't
thing,
here
but
on this
it has to
board.
be reviewed.
Okay.
I sat in on some of the original stuff.
Yeah, I remember Mr. Raines and others, yeah, geez, it's been that, time flies.
Because I think after I sat on that, that's when I came on the board,
Yeah.
town council back then.
Yeah, that's right.
I think the most of mine, I know I'm probably not supposed to be talking, but the comprehensive plan probably does need some rewriting in places. But unfortunately, none of the community feels that we have not followed or implemented pieces of the comprehensive plan. And so that's what caused the planning board and the council to agree to a meeting
Yeah, I think we
Because
discussed
there are
that.
things in there that can be implemented without a lot of money and without a lot of paperwork, so to speak. And we feel that both groups should be looking at that.
And the other piece is, and I'll hit this with a hammer every time, when towns were required to do a comprehensive plan, there was supposed to be a payback from the state. And the state reneged on sending the money to the towns. So they never got the money.
A lot of the stuff in the comprehensive plan is feel good,
Absolutely.
but there's no,
Right, no way.
no incentive for it.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, and on that note, spring is here. Any other items to discuss? Thank you for coming. I just realized we actually were down 3 members.
I'll make a motion, adjourn.
Second.
Well, I don't know why my, I don't know what my.
That's the way I thought we left it. That's how I'm
It is word.
Good and bad.
It's supposed to be good.
I said that I think I could run with raw, but
Besides mound,
I've
supposed to be a team.
been going to Bangor once a week the last 2 weeks.
Thank you.
Because of this market. But it varies. Okay, no problem. Let me know.
That's where it is.
Someone just brought that
Is it temperature controlled? That's what I mean. We own the master.
That's how I live.
They all know I can't sit
All right, we'll be in about 20 minutes.
Which is, you
Do we have a meeting Wednesday?
Well, I am here tonight because I don't know anything about the plan.
Wednesday.
6:30.
Not either.
Oh, I wanted to take the name.
At the depot.
Did you send something out?
Last week.